Takže čau, tu je Roman zo Scandinavian Study z podcastu Krok, vpred a vždy sa snažím priniesť tu na nejakých ľudí, ktorí mi nevedia čo povedať a takisto vám, ktorí to počúvajú. A môjim dnešným hosťom je Andy. Andy is my today's guest.
Hello.
And you are representing school in Denmark.
Yes.
But originally, and the reason why your English is so good is that you are not from Denmark, but you are from
Scotland.
So let's speak a bit about Scotland first. When I used to live in Scotland, I could find similarities between Czechoslovakia and England and Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like Scottish because you are like smaller and compact nation. I think so it's 5 million of you or something.
Yeah, roughly about that.
And to compare with English people, you are more like cheerful is the expression.
Yeah, I think in general Scotland seems to be quite popular with people because they're more open, you know, they're friendly, easygoing. Up where I'm from in the Highlands of Scotland, it's kind of very laid back kind of culture as well.
From which city you from?
Well, it's near Inverness. Inverness is like the most northerly city in Scotland. It's a small village just south of Inverness in the Highlands called Carbridge.
All right. Everyone knows Carbridge.
It's very touristy, so it's quite close to Aviemore and some of the ski areas in Cairngorms and Cairngorm National Park and that kind of thing.
When I was there, we rent a car and we went to Loch Ness and Mount McKinley, I think so. No, Mount McKinley, but what's the biggest mountain in Scotland? Ben Nevis.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
And the funny thing was, we've been going up and it's quite rocky road. And you have to go there early in the morning because it takes, I think so, 3 or 4 hours just to go up. And we've been going down from the peak, and one lady, she was walking up in heels.
Like high heels?
Yes, but seriously. And she asked me if on the top, if there is a restaurant or something. And I was like, no, it's not food. Who knows how she ends up?
Yeah. She's still there.
Yeah. But we are here a little bit to give people a bit more insight on education in Denmark and maybe show them your school in Aarhus. Why should anyone from Slovakia or Czech Republic consider coming to Denmark?
Well, I mean, me personally, I did both my bachelor and my master's in Denmark, having already done kind of a shorter term education in Scotland. I mean, some of the obvious ones is that you don't necessarily have to pay for the education in Denmark because there's it's because of the EU. You have to have the same rights as Danish students. So Danish students don't have to pay for education. It's built into kind of the cultural society that everyone should have the right to education, and so because of that, then EU citizens have the same rights as Danish citizens.
And just to mention that, if I would be outside from EU, I would have to pay 9,000 a year.
Well, I think it's it varies depending on what program it is. There's the set levels of, like, I think the government basically sets this is what a program costs to run, and then the school is free to kind of set the tuition fee based on that. But for example, our programs, if it's classroom based, we have programs that cost 4,500 per semester for euros for like a marketing management because it's classroom based, so there's not a lot of kind of a lot of equipment and stuff that needed. Where if it's more technical, something like chemical, biotechnical sciences, then because you're doing a lot of lab work, we have a lot of different expensive equipment and stuff. Then it costs like 6,500.
But the reason why should anyone go to Denmark is not only because it's free, but also it's good education, and you do something which is called, or you teaching in a way which you call problem-based learning.
Yeah, so it's especially there's kind of, you want to make the differentiation between universities, like research universities, and then business academies and professional high schools, like university colleges and that kind of thing, because there's a different methodology in the teaching a little bit, whereas business academies is very much focusing on the application of the theory. Obviously you still read books and you have articles to read in classes, and it's based all on the theory, but the focus is then how do you apply that in a real life situation. So there's a lot of cases that you do, there's a lot of group work and project work you do, that you actually put that into practice.
And this is very good because you have to apply the knowledge, right? And what I experienced, just screw this a bit harder. What I experienced was, in my case, I started to believe when I was in Denmark that I can run my own company, and I don't think so. I would be completely in a different sector. I would be probably employee, because in Slovakia, I mean, we have like entrepreneurs, but it's not so easy to imagine that you really can be successful. And in Denmark, you are surrounded with expression as a startup, as an entrepreneur, as innovation. You have even the bachelor degree program, I think so, innovation
entrepreneurship. Yeah. And that's very popular in Denmark, and I think it's probably because the society is based around, there's a lot of safety, and there's a kind of a safety net in terms of unemployment benefit, which is quite good. There's free health service. The whole society is based around, you pay a lot of taxes, but the wages are relatively high as well. So I think Denmark's, in my opinion, is one of kind of the safest countries to take risks in terms of starting something new, because there is that safety net where you're never going to be, without money or without a roof over your head kind of thing.
Andy, I could even feel on this, what you're saying, on my skin, and I was there as a foreigner, and I could really feel that if something happens to me, the government can help me with some money. I could feel that I'm part of the system, and I will be not left behind, even as a foreign student, not home student, even a foreigner. And I was in Denmark in times when there was no SU, no stipendium for international students.
Yeah.
So we didn't have this benefit, and I left Denmark, and after 2 years after I left, students started to get in those 750 euros, which for some people is like the reason why they go in there. But I went there, I wanted to have a education, and I wanted to have a good education. I didn't know anything about Denmark, about problem-based learning, but I'm happy that I've done it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that you shouldn't choose necessarily an education based on the fact that you're getting free money to study. It's not free money,
and it's nothing. If you 700 euros, it's good when you are 18.
Yeah.
But you can earn 7 times more a month when you will pay attention at school.
Absolutely.
And if you find a good product or good industry. How come? Let's speak, but openly. You have so many programs for foreign students. In Slovakia, it's maybe just at one university, maybe you have 5 English programs. But in Denmark, I know maybe 12 schools, and on each school you have 6, 7, 8 English taught programs. Why are you so welcome?
Well, it's a bit of a combination, really. One thing is, I think the Danish population, it's growing and it's becoming older and older, but the birth rate is quite low.
Right.
So it's quite a well-known fact within Denmark that in the coming 5, 10, 20 years, that the Danish workforce is not going to be big enough to be able to support the growing aging population. So they need kind of skilled quality workers in Denmark, and that one of the ways to attract them is and then being able to educate them and hopefully retaining them in Denmark afterwards. Another reason is the kind of internationalization aspect of it. So a lot of the schools, they want to be seen as having, there's 2 ways to look at it. Either you want to be seen as an international school with that also has Danish educations, or you want to have a Danish school that has international programs. I think most of them are seen like that. But it's where then you have the opportunity to provide exchange programs. You do summer schools, you have partnerships with different schools around the world. So like, for example, Business Academy at Aarhus has 70 plus partners around the world where we do, different exchange programs. We have summer schools in Canada, in Kuala Lumpur, other places where without the international programs, those kind of aspects would be impossible. And then it also helps with internationalization at home in terms of giving the Danes that international experience where some of them may not necessarily want to go abroad to do a semester abroad, but then having internationals within the school and trying to integrate them in that sense helps them. So.
And it's another point is that you send those students who finish education in Denmark as ambassadors of Denmark, and in some cases they can turn their actions into some business which brings more money to Denmark.
Well, it's funny you say that because yes, that is true, but that's kind of a more it's not a well-known kind of aspect. It's not something the government really focused on too much either. But one of the things, there's been various different kind of research done about how much foreign students bring to the Danish society in terms of the cost involved if they get free education. And so that's one of the things we don't have to necessarily educate an international student. It's only the point from when they come and study their higher education. So it's maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on how long they take their education. Which, if they stayed in Denmark afterwards, or if they had some kind of import-export or something like that, the benefits to society over the longer term is
and it's difficult to track also.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
Let's speak a bit more about your school. And I'm working in Denmark with 11 schools, I think, so it is now. And I can honestly say Business Academy Aarhus, I have always satisfied students. You expecting from students to go to school and to learn something. It's not very, I would say it's a very disciplined process. Obviously you are focused on business, right? This is why you are called Business Academy.
It was, yes and no. It's funny because it's called, in Danish it's called Erhvervsakademi, which erhverv is like business as in doing business, not necessarily the subject of business. So we quite often get that confused when we're out doing different fairs or wherever we are, that people only think we have like business programs. But we have, IT programs, we have, multimedia, web design, we have chemical and biotechnical science, for example. So the way academies, back in 2009, the government decided to merge different smaller schools together to make the academies. And that's why, for example, we have a business school which is merged together with a multimedia design school, which is merged together with IT, which is merged together with chemical biotechnical to make the business academy. And it's a similar situation in the other regions as well, where smaller kind of almost not quite vocational, but schools which were focused on specific elements have been kind of merged together to make them slightly more
and bigger. Yeah. Not in size, but also in resources, human resources, exactly. Students. Let's speak a bit more about Aarhus. Some people might know where is Copenhagen, but don't take this personally. I didn't know even where Denmark is located, seriously. I just went there, and I remember we've been at the party, and on the wall, that guy, it was actually Jacob, he has map of Denmark. And I was like, okay, I really didn't check where the Aalborg is. So what is Aarhus? Tell me more about Aarhus.
Yeah, it's Aarhus. It's the second biggest city in Denmark, actually. So it's the biggest city on the Jylland Peninsula. Last year we were the capital of culture in Europe, so there was lots of different activities going on. But size-wise, it's about 400,000 total in terms of including the outskirts and everything. And it's very much a student city, so roughly 20% of the population are actually students. So there's quite a lot of different institutions around Aarhus, which means, start of September time, there's maybe 10,000 new students starting schools around the area.
10,000, okay.
So, which means it's quite international as well. It's very well known. I think the mayor, exactly. The mayor has a very strong focus on internationalization and getting people involved in terms of, opportunities for internationals to come, because he's well aware that because of the aging population, there'll be a need for kind of skilled workers in the future. So whether it's students or whether we're encouraging, other internationals to come who are already professionals on that, they have a kind of really strong focus on that as well. Good thing about Aarhus as well, it's on the coast, so while there's a lot of kind of cultural activity, sports, that kind of thing going on in town, lots of things for students, it's also kind of very close to beaches. So in the summer, there's various different really good beaches you can go to hang out. And there's like forests, ancient forests and woods and that kind of thing as well. So there's a contrast as to, if you're more into kind of the city life, that's available for you. But if you also want a bit of nature and to kind of get away from the hustle bustle, then there's lots of things to do as well.
Hustle bustle?
Yeah.
Actually, this is a huge benefit. Maybe you don't perceive it as, but Denmark is an island. And Czech Republic and Slovakia is landlocked. I think so, you call it landlocked. The closest I have to travel is, I think so, 8 hours to Italy when I want to see the beautiful sea. And in Denmark, I think so, from each place in Denmark is 41 kilometers and you reach the shore.
Yeah, I think my colleagues yesterday was telling me this, that Denmark actually has the same amount of coastal line as Italy has.
All right.
So I mean, like from the very west of Denmark to the very east of Denmark, also going over the bridges and everything. I think maximum travel time is like 4 hours or something to get from one to the other.
It's wonderful to spend some time of your life when you are from Slovakia. For us, it's something very special. And first time I've seen the sea was when I was 21, really. And I remember it was in Croatia. It was city Rijeka. Okay, let's speak more about students. What kind of students you seek? What students have the biggest chance to get in?
Well, I suppose good students, because we're one of the bigger academies. It's
what means what? Good student?
Yeah, so a good student, you have good grades. Because we're one of the bigger academies, it's there's more competition to get in. So obviously, I mean, we receive more applications than we have spaces for, because we have like a set number of spaces set by the government. So a good student is someone who has good grades. Maybe they have some volunteer experience in something. They might have previous work experience. Maybe they've done a little bit of education that's relevant towards the course. It's not mandatory in any way. That they're able to write a good motivational letter. You know, why is it that you want to study this program? What's your future plans? Is it something you've aspired to, or do you have a big plan for the future to move on to XYZ job-wise, or whatever it might be? And generally, people who are motivated to. One thing about the teaching as well, aside from it being kind of, applying the theory, it's about taking part in classes. So you're actively taking part. You're expected to contribute in class, in group work, in project work. If the teacher asks something, that you can kind of almost challenge what's being said. So that if there's a theory presented, it doesn't necessarily mean that is how it is. If you have other ideas, it's open to discussion, and that's kind of the good thing about it.
I was studying in Denmark. It was international sales and marketing. I finished in Aalborg, and I remember our beginnings. We've been in international class, and I'm trying to connect it with what you said, that you are challenged to speak up. On first few months, we've been just sitting there in very quiet manner, because this is how you do it in Slovakia. You are not asked, you just listen, and when you ask, then you say...
You recite the book, basically.
Yeah. And this is something what students have to adjust to, that you have to speak up on classes, you will be challenged, and it's more than welcome that you have opinion. And sometimes even you are so progressive that in Aalborg we have those classes that students supposed to mentor teachers. You should go through your daily topic, and students should replace for an hour or day teachers. It's very innovative. Actually, Denmark is an innovative country. How we finish it? Why should anyone give it a try? You are from Scotland and you end up in Denmark. And UK is considered as a very economically developed. You are speaking there in English. Why did you go to Denmark?
Well, I mean, for various personal reasons, but I basically followed a girl to Denmark, and that's why I found out about it. About that you could get free education, and because I was able back then when I did it, you had to work a certain amount of time before you were able to get SU and stuff like that. So I mean that obviously that's one aspect towards it. That in the UK education is so expensive that was kind of an element towards it. Because I'd learned the language and stuff. It was kind of an obvious progression for me to do education. I wanted to do something. I'd done something in the UK, but it wasn't really something that was applicable, or I couldn't really get a job within that branch anyway. It was doing like sports coaching, which is difficult to get into. So it was the quality of education. I mean, Denmark isn't really well known for exporting specific products aside from maybe wind power. So their main source of export is their knowledge, which is their brain power, because everyone in the country is kind of encouraged to get education. So it's just kind of a natural thing for me. And then I found out they had programs in English, which was perfect, because then while I've learned Danish and I can do Danish, I'm basically fluent now, that it meant that everything was just that little bit easier for me. So because there was programs available in English. And they have programs which are kind of very relevant in terms of being able to get jobs. They're very focused on education in Denmark, is to try and educate people to be able to get jobs afterwards. So a lot of the time they're quite often looking into the government in terms of, you know, what's unemployment rates, what are we educating people to do, so that when you get educated, you're more likely to be able to get a job in Denmark. And I mean, whether you do that abroad or whatever, that's a different subject. But that's why kind of a lot of the stuff that is taught is relevant for what is needed on the job market.
One more question: how difficult was to learn Danish?
Well, when I first went to Denmark, I worked part-time, and then I did 3 hours a day in the mornings of Danish classes.
Really?
So a lot of people do, you know, evening classes twice a week or something. But I did it for 9 months for 3 hours a day while I was working part-time beside it. And then passed it.
All
and
right.
then, so I think I'm just lucky that I have kind of a natural knack for languages. I was quite good at languages in school. So for me, it wasn't too difficult. It was more because I was tired of school at that point. So, you know, having to do school and learn languages again was kind of a real struggle. But it's about, you know, delayed gratification in a way. You have to do these things to be able to gain the benefits of it at a later point in time. It's like education in general. You're putting all the work in now to be able to gain what you've done in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, because you'll be able to get a good job out of it and get decent wages, all that kind of thing. So putting the work in now is what makes the difference to be able to kind of have a better life at the end of the day.
Actually, you hit it, you nailed it. It's called action reaction.
Yeah.
And guys, if you do a lot of action, probably, most likely, comes a lot of reaction.
Yeah.
But if you don't do any action,
well, that's it. You got to put in the work to gain the rewards.
Excellent, Andy. Thank you very much.
No worries.
And my today's guest was Andy Grattham from Scotland and Aarhus in Denmark. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Thank you.